Joining me now is Senator Tim Scott, the junior senator from South Carolina. Senator Scott has been hard at work sparking economic growth in underserved communities across the country. Senator Scott, thanks so much for joining us. I am someone who has been interested in opportunity zones, which you and Senator Cory Booker, many people don't remember the bipartisan roots. You know, Jared Bernstein, who's now going in the administration, worked with Kevin Hassett, who was in the previous Trump administration. You couldn't imagine a more bipartisan storm to bring this together. What is the state of opportunity zones today, and what do you think the opportunities are as we now move forward?
Well, hey, thank you for being an early adopter. Obviously, you were on the right side of the curve. You're the guy that makes a ton of money because you are an early decision maker on the right stock. In my opinion, opportunity zones is the right stock for the present and certainly the right stock for the future. One of the things that you can think about when you think about the opportunity zones now is $75 billion in commitments as of 2019. That translates into hundreds of thousands of jobs. It translates into a drop in poverty within the zones and an increase in real estate values for those folks who own their properties. About 46% of the people who live in opportunity zones own their own property. So that appreciation really is starting to close the wealth gap. So some of the things that we dreamt of, the opportunity zones are currently seeing manifest. It's a wonderful thing, and I'm glad that it's bipartisan legislation. I'm glad that folks within the incoming administration will be embracing, frankly, opportunity zones because they are proving to be a heavy hitter in the task of eliminating poverty throughout the country. I can think of places like Hampton County, South Carolina, a very poor area of the state, a very rural area of the state, that just had a $315 million agricultural technology center created in a county with only 5,000 jobs. This project's bringing 1,500 permanent jobs and an additional 500 seasonal jobs.
So as you look at, you just mentioned agricultural tech, but every element of tech will have an undergirding now of communications technology, of internet technology, the future retrofitting for 5G. And I know that this is also on your mind, that yes, that we have a responsibility to connect those that have not been connected, and that opportunity zones may cover some of that, but not all of it. But where do you think the IT picture comes in to making sure we give a square deal, if you will, to Americans that ought to be connected?
We have a number of pieces of legislation that focuses on making sure that answer is from sea to shining sea, especially the rural parts of South Carolina, the rural parts of our nation. Think about it this way. Between Elon Musk and his project to provide broadband and connection issues in rural America, nearly $1 billion given to his objective recently, as well as legislation that we have that brings $20 billion through one piece of legislation, $10 billion through another piece of legislation, that all focuses on making sure that a rural senior citizen has telehealth. But telehealth requires a connection. Our kids, K through 12 kids today in rural South Carolina and rural America, for them to go to virtual school, it requires a connection. For those folks who are stuck outside of the job market, they're living in rural America, they want to work, they have the skills to work, but they don't have the connection issues. This will solve that problem by bridging the connection divide. And we're seeing so much movement that even today, as we're debating the final touches on this package, we are very hopeful that there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, for new technology and new connection in rural America. That is really good news in those three major areas that people need connection issues to solve.
Senator, we've been through a very stressful period in this country, health challenges, racial divides, income impacts, and the inequality in America. So when you look, what I was fascinated, I kind of looked at the residents that are in the opportunity zones around the nation, and about 60% are non-white. And, I don't want to go too far with this, but when you kind of look at socioeconomic status and you look at racial divides, they kind of correlate pretty strongly together. Do you look at this as an opportunity that both parties just finally got to roll up their sleeves and begin saying, we need to make this work. We need to get people connected, because not only because there's an economic justice and an economic agenda to help people unleash their creativity, but because of what we've seen in the divisions in race, we have a moral responsibility there as well.
Well, as a 7-year-old who grew up in poverty in a single-parent household, who felt like the country may not be for me, who was disillusioned, angry, and did not put forth my best foot, this answers that question. It bridges the divide, and it says to that kid growing up in poverty, the white kid or the black kid, the brown kid or the red kid, it says the same exact thing. It says, we see you. And by bringing this nation together through legislative vehicles like opportunity zones, not only do we see you, we believe in your future. Your future is tied to America's best future. And to the extent that we equip our young, bright minds, as diverse as they are, around this country, we actually create a better outcome for every single American. And if we take that attitude into opportunity zones and then the broader congressional picture, we'll find ourselves amending bridges, rebuilding relationships, and forging new paths together. Our country is too small to be divided when our competition, be it China or Iran or Russia or whoever you see as our primary targets from a competitive perspective, we have to be one country, completely committed to the advancement of every single American.
Senator, another part of the Tim Scott economic equation that you've been working on out there is the Helping Gig Economy Workers Act.
Yes.
I'm interested in that because it doesn't get enough discussion. What are you trying to fix?
Well, listen, this pandemic, as you said earlier, has had such a negative impact on workers throughout the country. The question is, so many of those workers are willing to continue to work. The question is, are we giving them the resources necessary to equip themselves for the gig economy? The answer is we absolutely, positively, unequivocally must, for our benefit and for their benefit as a nation. And so what you'll find is that we're looking at a tax credit of around $4,000 to help them get retrained towards a better future. And honestly, if we focus our attention on ways for us to provide more benefits during the COVID for our workers, we'll be in better shape.
Let me just ask you finally, Senator, with the Biden administration coming in, and as I mentioned, Jared Bernstein kind of was, working with you early on, and Senator Booker on the big opportunity, zone construct. Are you in a place where you're going to try to provide, track, if you will, so that you and the Biden administration can help solve some of these problems together?
Well, I think America wants us to work together for their solutions. They are not interested in Biden versus Scott. They're interested in my household being the priority focus of all members of Congress and the administration working together to piece solutions that meet the needs of people where they are. And I have said it a lot of times. I will work with anyone from anywhere at any time who wants to put the American people and their business first. And I expect that I'm going to find ways to support America with the Biden administration, with Democrats working with us to solve problems, because solving those problems are key to the best and brightest future for all of America. That's one of the things that we've been committed to for a very, very long time, is a willingness to work together, not for our own good, but for the good of our nation. And when we do that, we find ourselves in the best position. I know that you agree because you're an earlier adopter, and I got to say,
I think I've always been fascinated, and I tell people, I said, there are a lot of people say, well, it's a rich person's tax shelter, da da da. Well, how do you get dollars and resources behind people who don't, who have talent and whatnot? So I'm someone who has a lot of time to discuss how you did that and do that. So, but let me squeeze in one more about opportunity zones. We all know that when you make an app on your smartphone, you do an upgrade, right? There's got to be a 2.0 version, a 3.0 version. Do you have in mind what the Opportunity Zone 2.0 upgrade needs to be?
Well, yes, I do. A couple of things that I'd like to say. Number one, if you think about Opportunity Zone 2.0, you've got to think about innovation and technology. Innovation could include innovation in technology, but it also could include innovation in agriculture, innovation in wealth creation, innovation in education. I would love to see Opportunity Zones be the home to charter schools in the poorest parts of our nation. Where your zip code no longer determines the quality of your education. And that means that your education will be a stronger, better determinant on your income and the quality of life you'll lead later. If we change the outcome of our poorest Americans, we are changing America for the better. I also think about technology, whether it's the Charleston tech corridor that's in an Opportunity Zone, whether it's Galen Robotics in Maryland that's in an Opportunity Zone. Technology and Opportunity Zones will be synonyms in some future dictionary, and that's a really good thing. I will say that as I'm sitting here thinking about some of my comments along the way, the gig economy worker that you asked me about earlier, I conflated two of my pieces of legislation together, but let me just make sure I clarify it. I have a great staff who's back here saying, make sure I get that part right. We want to make sure that during the pandemic, that the gig economy workers have the ability to receive certain benefits for companies like Lyft and other companies, Uber, when their 1099 contractors find themselves on the outside looking in during the pandemic. We wanted to make sure that their workers had an opportunity to receive some of the benefits through all of the CARES Act packages. So I was thinking about what we're doing to make sure that we bridge to the gig economy for folks through our tax credits.
Sure.
But I didn't want to leave your viewers without all the information on our legislative priorities. But I definitely think that Opportunity Zones will be synonymous with innovation and technology and the American way.
Well, folks, you heard it here. You heard the first outlines of the upgrade of Opportunity Zones 2.0. Senator Tim Scott, thanks so much for sharing this with you and sharing this with us and for talking with us today.
Appreciate it. God bless. See you soon.